Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a while since I did a review, but today I decided to do a review because I just came back from seeing Marvel's latest thematic entry, essentially Marvel's first theatrical release since, COVID essentially. But this movie in a way has been postponed in two different ways. One, because it's meant to come out last year, but COVID of course. And two, that this movie in particular, this story, is about 3, 4, 5 years late. And that is because this is the first Black Widow solo movie. Not a team up, her not, being a supporting character in another, character's film. No, this is Black Widow and her own main storyline. And going into this movie, before I went in, I saw some articles and stuff, like more headlines and video headlines, kind of, seeming like there's some mixed things going on with this movie. Some people kind of like it, some people think it's just bad. So I don't know, nothing spoilish, going in, but I just, was, wondering what was it? And coming out of the movie, after seeing it, I thought it was okay. But I think that's where the main criticism a lot of people have for this movie, and some ways justifiably so, is that it's just okay. It's serviceable. It's a serviceable Marvel movie. And I think that's what the disappointing thing is, amongst some other things. And I'll get into that as I go into my review. To say the things that I liked about the movie, I liked Scarlett Johansson. I mean, she's always given a, good performance as Black Widow. And here she does the same thing. She's as clever, as, smart, and everything you love about Black Widow in this film. Even some of the supporting cast like Florence Pugh, David Harper, Rachel Weisz, they all did a good job in there. They were this spy family at some point. Essentially, they were just undercover KGB agents in the United States. They were part of Natasha's past for a significant part. So they have a connection there, but there's a lot of hostility there too, because as we know, eventually Natasha is in the Red Room and she goes through everything she went through there. So it's supposed to be some drama there, and I feel like the chemistry overall, especially between Natasha and Florence Pugh's character, it's good. But beyond that, everything else is either generic or just serviceable. Like, the action scenes are good, they're entertaining, but they're nothing to really like awe about. They're standard Marvel spy movie beat 'em up. Like, they have some of that Black Widow choreography in there where, like, she does that whole little spin kick around the neck and flip the person thing. They have a few of those, and those are always cool, I guess. Again, it's entertaining, but it's nothing new, or at least nothing that, gets you really going. And maybe it's just because I've been spoiled lately with really good action films, like, the John Wick films. You had Extraction with Chris Hemsworth, the Raid films. Even going back to Captain America Winter Soldier, choreography wasn't always the, most bestest thing ever, but there was a certain intensity to it that made you really get engaged with it. And I really don't feel like you had any real scenes like that here. And honestly, a lot of the stunts in this, at times, y'all, there were times where they reached some Fast and Furious level of like logic and stunts in this. Because you have to remember, Black Widow, she's just a person, a highly skilled person, but amongst the Avengers, her and Hawkeye, they are just normal people who are just skilled with particular things, that allow them to survive these tremendous, encounters. But there's this scene, I'm not going to completely give it away, but if you've seen like the ending to like John Wick 3 and you remember what happened to him there, you kind of know what kind of plays out there with him at the end. But here it plays out similar, and the scene I'm talking about, but even more unrealistic. Like, literally, me and the entire audience that was really into the movie for the most part, like, we're just like, what? That stuck out. And there was also like a car crash. I'm like, okay, whatever. At that point, comic books. But that scene I'm talking about particularly was the most ridiculous thing in the movie. One criticism of this movie I did see people have was that of the humor in the movie. They said it's too much humor, in which my policy going into a Marvel movie typically is, I expect there to be a lot of humor in it. So if the only criticism is that, well, it's just a lot of humor, then I just think you just don't like Marvel movies in general. But one of the criticisms I saw for this movie is that the humor itself undercut certain serious scenes that would have been good if you just didn't inject that one joke. And I kind of have to agree with that. There's like 2 or 3 scenes where like characters are talking, you know, amongst like the family members, talking about, you know, their past or how they felt about it. And suddenly it's undercut by a joke and it just ends. And that's it. And I don't know why they choose to do that. You know, there's a lot of movies that like either it's meant to be a comedy or it's kind of like a Marvel movie where it's like a mixture of both, where, you know, they have these scenes that should be really serious and, you know, you're supposed to just like get invested into it and let it play out. But it'll be undercut by this person coming in and making this joke that just completely derails any investment and seriousness you had in that moment. Maybe studios just think that if you have a movie that's meant to be kind of more light, go too real and too serious, you lose your audience. But I don't know, Black Widow is one of those characters that you're allowed to get serious. I mean, Winter Soldier, Civil War, of those movies, when things were serious, they let the seriousness sit there for a bit. But lately, they don't seem like they can do that. Even, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy, when they were serious, they allowed there to be some serious moments at least. Especially with David Harbour's character, which I think he's one of the most disappointing parts of the movie. Not the most disappointing parts, but one of them. You know, he's really good as far as what he's given, but the things he's given is not much. He's supposed to be this, you know, washed up super soldier. Essentially, he's supposed to be like the, you know, Soviet Union's version of Captain America. And he doesn't do much other than some displays of feats of strength, which I don't know if it's me, but I feel like after Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they've just kind of amped up, you know, what exactly a super soldier can do. Because we always knew that, like, you know, they were super agile, they were pretty strong, but here it's just straight up super strength. And Falcon and Winter Soldier, it was like, oh, that's a little bit crazy. You could just jump off the top, all the way from the top of the building and land on your feet. Okay, I mean, even, you know, Steve had to use a shield to like cushion his fall at the end, you know, and it's just his super soldierness allowed him to survive the, you know, other parts of the impact. But now it's just like, oh no, we just literally can just flip tanks almost. Like they're almost on par with Asgardians at this point. But I mean, that aside, you really, you know, don't get to see him do any real cool stuff, you know. He's mostly just a bumbling idiot throughout the film. Even that scene with Taskmaster and him fighting, you know, you see it in the trailer, you cut away from it so much you don't see any of that fight really, and when you do see it, it's just him kind of getting knocked around by Taskmaster. And again, any of the serious moments you would have with him with the girls, it's kind of undercut by a joke for him being stupid. Like, for example, there's a scene and he makes the generic, oh, are you guys on your period joke? You're so aggressive right now. You know, that thing that's been played out since like 2010. They then go into the fact like, no, we don't have periods because we had our uteruses removed from our bodies forcibly because we were Black Widows and stuff like that. You know, they explained that in Age of Ultron. And you think that would go into a serious moment, but no, it's just played off as just a joke. You know, this really serious thing that happened to them, literally having a choice removed from them by force, having him maybe reflect on his role in that happening in their lives. No, they just kind of play past this and being like, oh, I don't want to hear it because, you know, I'm a man and I don't want to hear disgusting woman things, you know. They do that trope, and that's another thing. This movie's kind of full of trope-ish things, and it really undercuts everybody else's character. And it's a trope that's kind of recent. I kind of call it the woman action lead trope, where they feel like for a woman action lead in a movie to be competent and to be seen as competent and strong and powerful, the bulk majority of the guy characters, whether they're good guys or bad guys, have to be the complete opposite, just completely incompetent. The woman is always the most clever one in the room or the most competent one, and they seem to kind of do that a little bit here. I don't know if it was intentional or not. There's not a lot of guy characters, but the ones that are in here, except for like maybe one, they're incompetent or stupid. It's a bit frustrating, and I feel like you didn't have to do that with a Black Widow movie. She's always been next to other people she was as equally as competent and strong as them. You never felt like she was a lesser. You didn't have to lower everybody else to make her up. I just didn't see the point of doing that for some of these characters. And then there's the villains, and the main villain, the main guy running the show here, he's the most generic Marvel villain ever. Like generic. Like he's barely a character. He's supposed to be like, you know, this ex-Soviet Union officer or something that's been, you know, running this Red Room program, but really he just feels like a retired mob boss that had ambitions beyond just ruling like part of Newark, I guess. He's just literally there spouting his, you know, bad guy ass position, like, oh, I'm in control of everything, you know, I'm superior and all this stuff. of. Nothing to his character at all. Completely two-dimensional, especially when they go into the history between him and Natasha and like his effect on her and, you know, her effect on him possibly. But they do nothing with that connection at all. He's just generic bad guy. And then there's Taskmaster, who, when I say the other guy is barely a character, is not a character at all. Taskmaster is just a mindless drone throughout the entire movie, just a Terminator. And they try to give Taskmaster some backstory to make you kind of care, but you don't care at all. I mean, really, I feel like you could have just made Taskmaster the main bad guy controlling the Red Room and all that stuff, and, you know, made Taskmaster, you know, just someone who is on equal footing to Black Widow for skill and more, because you could copy everybody's abilities, which they really don't do nothing with that. They kind of hint like, oh yeah, Taskmaster, you know, they can, you know, Taskmaster can mimic other people's, you know, fighting skills and stuff. But really, you don't go too much past that, past he can throw a shield and, you know, has Black Panther claws at one point. That's about it. Nothing else to really show like, oh, this person is on a different level. It's formidable in every way. But yeah, ultimately, the movie is fine. It's just serviceable. And that's a little bit disappointing, especially for a movie that I'm assuming is Scarlett Johansson's final entry into the MCU. But at the end of the day, if you want to go see it, it's, you know, it's fine. I don't think it's be a complete waste of money. I think you shouldn't pay $30 on Disney Plus to see it. I think you'd probably be better off just going to your local movie theater if that's open around you and seeing it. I do think when it eventually becomes free on Disney Plus, and, you know, on that section it says, hey, the MCU in chronological order. Yeah, watch it that way. It'd be in proper place, I suppose. But otherwise, yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you thought about the movie. Did you like it? Dislike it? Did you have any problems like I did? Like, subscribe, share, and until next time, take care.